We're now moving into Chapter 3, Level 1, and in this particular chapter we're going to start to investigate the use of charts and depiction of data in a visual format. And one of the things before we get into actually building charts, I want to just show you some illustrations as to what would be good practice and what would be not good practice in the building of charts and depicting of data. So what we have here is a bunch of data from the TZ company, the TZ company that we've been dealing with throughout this entire course. And you'll see that in 2009 all the way to 2016, the company sells 3 different categories of goods. And you can see the various costs, or the sales in millions of dollars for each of the categories, with the totals across the bottom here. Now, one thing as human beings is that we're not very good at seeing trends or comparisons just by looking at a lump of numbers. We're not very good at visualizing that. So it's a lot better to turn that into a graphic which we can appreciate the nuances of the trends and the comparisons. So if I was to take this data here and highlight a blob of data, it's very simple to click on Insert and then choose a recommended chart, something like this, and then click OK, and there comes the chart in this form. Okay, but before we get into this, I just want to show you the comparison of a couple of charts using this data here. If I look at this chart here, that's the data in this form, and if you'll notice the excessive redundancy of data, redundancy meaning the duplication of data. Here we have the table down here at the bottom where the data comes from. Here we have the actual categories of equipment with the data again at the top of each bar. And then if you look at the left hand side, if you follow the grids, you can imply what the actual value is. So there's far too much use of redundant data in this. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to be careful about not overdoing the ink on a chart, and that's one of the things that makes good practice. You want to minimize the ink to information ratio. They call it chart junk, and look at all this kind of stuff down. This is all chart junk. It's visual clutter, and you want to reduce that. A better way of representing the data is simply like that. This is exactly the same data, but it shows you a trend line. It has these little markers here indicating this is 2011, 10, etc. And it shows you a legend at the bottom showing you the differences. So footwear is going across nicely until 2014, and then it climbs and goes up. Whereas conversely, the equipment is starting to go down, and then the apparel is going up again. So these represent trends. They're informative to the actual manager that's looking at all this kind of stuff. All right. So this is the better way to depict it if you wanted to depict trends. All right, if you want to depict more comparison between the content, then it'd be better to do cluster charts. So what we're going to do here, consumer purchases, the actual file that you have available, consumer purchases, L1 start is this file here, and we're going to start manipulating that to produce images that try to be more informative about the data. So I'm going to delete this or close this window here because we don't need this. We're going to work on this file right here. Okay. Alright, so we're working on this. Is what you have too. This one here. So in order to set up a chart in the first place, that's to review, you grab the data like this, and I'm going to mistakenly grab the total at the bottom as well, just like this. Once you've highlighted it, you go Insert. Recommended charts is often the first place to start off. It interprets what you've depicted, and then it suggests a chart. Let's choose this one, which is shown here on the right hand side. Click OK, and it shows you that particular set of data. Now this data here is not really very concise. I don't want the totals column across the top, which is this yellow one here. But I do want these ones down here to show me the trends for the equipment, footwear, and apparel over the years. There's 2 ways of fixing this up. The first one is I can actually reselect the data. So I'm going to blow this away, touching the graphic and pressing delete. I can highlight what I want, like that. I can click on insert again, recommended charts. There's the lines now without the total. Click OK. Alright, there it is there. But a more flexible way to do it is this. If I select all the data here like that, I click insert, recommended charts again. I'll choose the one that we had the first time. And this time I'm going to filter the data that's actually being used. And that's that little filtering icon here. So I click it. And then I say I don't want totals to be part of the display. So click it, and then apply. And that allows you to then just see what came about with the depiction of just the data that we selected, like this stuff here, right? Okay, so this filtering tool is very valuable for that kind of quick change. In fact, you can change the entire chart if you wanted. And so you click on the chart itself, go to design, go to the far right, and I want to change it to a cluster chart. So I'm going to, cluster column. I go to columns. There's all the various choices you can have. We're going to talk about these two later on, where I want to do cluster column like this, and I click OK. Alright, and there's the cluster column. I'm just going to move this to the side for a second, and I'm going to copy it. So I right click, copy. It's not copying. Hold on. It seems to be hung. Oh, wait a minute. It's thinking about it. Oh, let's try it again. Right click, copy. There we are. I'm going to put it over here, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to paste it. And remember, when you're pasting charts, you always use the left hand icon, not the other ones, because these are different. Right, left hand icon. And then I've got two representations of the same data. They're identical charts. Right. Let me just put these over here like this. And this time I'm going to change this one back to the line that we had before. So I'm going to click on line. And that's the one that we want. Click OK, and it applies the line. So you can see here that this depiction of information shows you the comparison between the categories within a year, the comparison. But the trend line itself is kind of not as clear to see. All right, you can see it, but it's not as clear. And then the yellow here for the footwear, it goes up like that, and then the apparel is the same thing. So the chart on the right here is much better for depiction of trends over the years, and the chart on the left is more more useful for showing not the trends, but the comparison of categories over the years. Which one is doing better, and then what happens here. So here in 2013 we have equipment that's still doing well compared to the rest, and then it starts to take a nosedive, with the other ones starting to take over predominance in the company. That's the kind of thing managers need to know about. Alright, so filtering helps you with that. Changing of the design from the changed chart type is important as well. I'm going to take this away, throw away this chart here. I'm going to move this up here, and imagine a situation where the designer of the chart does not want to see 09, 10, 11. We just want the last 5 years. We can do the filtering again. All right. This time I can deselect these years here. Okay. Click apply, and you'll see now how it properly resets the information on the screen. The other thing too is that you'll notice that it's set up as 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, etc. all the way through. I'm just going to recopy this chart, put it over here, because I want to show you the difference between switching the rows and the columns. I'm just going to paste it over here so we have exactly the same thing, left and right. However, I'm going to take back to this one here, go back to design, and if I switch columns and rows, what do you think is going to happen? I click it. Look what happens. It changes now from a depiction of years across the bottom. Here it is here, what it was originally like. And now it's showing the years in terms of what's happening with equipment, what's happening with footwear, what's happening with apparel. Look how equipment is taking a nosedive, right? Over the years, 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16. This one is trending up, and so is this one trending up to replace what's happening with equipment. So by switching the row in the column in this manner, you can also change the depiction of the data that serves, so it can be best served what you want to do with the data. All right, now let's blow this away. And delete that. Oops, let me get the chart selected. Press delete. I'm going to move this over here. Oh, I keep not selecting things very well. There we are. And I want to change the chart title. Very, very simple to do. I just want to, let me just stretch this up a bit like that. Pull this down. Oh, I made a bit of a mess of this. There, pull the chart down like that, so that the chart title's out of the way. So I go up here and I change the chart title. This time, all you have to do is double click on that, and you can actually select the data inside. So I want to change this to 5-year chart. Let me just do that. 5-year history, I'll call it. Now let's go 5-year performance. That'd be better. Okay, so you just type it. If it's simple enough, let's get rid of this thing, whatever that popped up. Okay. I also want to put on the left-hand side, I want to put down a y-axis to express these as millions of dollars. So over here, when I've got the little sign coming up, the plus sign, I click it. I want to use axis titles, but I want to use the right arrow here to specify just the y-axis. So I click it, and that's called the vertical axis, the primary vertical. You'll notice how it popped up just below. See that? There it is. If I'm doing horizontal, it pops up just below just above the footwear legend. This one's the primary vertical. If I click it, vertical primary means the left-hand side, secondary means the right-hand side in terms of the y-axis. I'm going to click primary vertical, and then now I have to select this, and I can now change this to brackets in millions. That's what I want to do as my text, right? So in millions, like that. Okay, very simple. Not a big deal, this charting. Let's get this open a bit. I'm going to shrink down this plot area so that it's not crowded. Oops. So you can click, there we go. Shrink it down a bit so it's not so crowded, so you can see the millions more expressively there. Okay, now I'm going to say show you different chart types that you can do with this type of data, and we'll talk about whether they're really practical or not. If I show you that, I'm going to copy this again, which I've done several times now. Right click and paste it. I want to change this to an area chart. So I'm going up to Day Design, change the chart type, and I want to go to Area, like this. And I'll choose the one that it's recommended, so click OK. There's the same data depicted as areas. But one of the problems with this particular depiction of data is that the gray part here is at the front, okay? Meaning it's there's your $10,000, your 10 million, 12 million. There it is there, 10 million up to 12 million, back down again. The orange, meaning the footwear, is sitting at about 13 million right there, and then it goes down and back up. However, the blue trending down is actually in the background. It trends down like this, and because it's an area chart, it actually overlays it and hides it. So when you're asked for considering doing an area chart, remember that the data could be hidden and not very informative to the reader because of the way it overlaps itself. Okay, so I'm not going to use that. I don't like the area charts myself. I'm going to press delete. All right, what we're going to do now is I'm going to get rid of this. Actually, I'll just put it over here to the right, out the way for now. I'm going to shrink it down. I can always bring it back later on. I'll shrink that down, put it over here just so it's out the way. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a pie chart that tells me something about what is happening in 2016 with all the equipment, footwear, and apparel. So I'm going to do a pie chart. So I'm going to select this data here. How do I select the block of data far away from it? You hold the control button down and then select the next one. Alright, I'm going to do that again because the biggest error I see is that students will press the control button at this point, right here, when you should not be. You select the data first, then you press the control button. You hold it down, don't let go. I'm holding it right now. Select the other side, the other block of data, let go of everything, and now you can use this data, these categories to depict this data here. So now I'm going to click Insert. I'm going to do a three-dimensional pie chart, recommended. I'm going to do all charts, pie, three-dimensional. Click OK. And there it is. All right. So we're going to investigate these 3D pie charts. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to touch anywhere on the pie and then right-click, and you'll see something called 3D rotation here. And you click it, and it allows the dialog box here, the X and the Y and the perspectives to be adjusted. So I can now run this by changing that. Notice how it spins around as I am pressing the X-axis. All right, and I can spin it backwards if I want. And the idea is to get the slice of most interest right at the front, right there. Because I want to talk about just this slice here, meaning the footwear is doing very well in 2016. The y-axis does much the same thing. Look at that. It changes the way it's looked at. The perspective represents the height, the thickness of it. So you can do that. See that? Okay. And so we'll leave it at that. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to format the actual labels. I want labels to be put up here. Notice that as I hover it, you'll see what the data actually is. I want the data to actually be put on the slice. I go to the plus sign. I go data labels. All right. I go to the right. I want to do more options. Okay. And data label is default. Did you see a little pokey thing here with the data? I want the category name there. Notice how it gets plunked down there. I don't want the values. I do want the percentages, and I don't want a leader line. That's a pointer. Don't need it. It's as simple as that. I click the X to get rid of this dialog box, and then I check this out, and you'll notice how that how do I select the actual text, because I want to make it bolder and bigger. If I touch one of them, it selects all the text. You see that? I go to Home. I go bold. I increase it a couple clicks. There we go. If I wanted to just play with one of them, I select one. It selects all three. Select it again, and then it selects just the one. And in this case, I want to move this up into the middle of the slice like that. Okay. The last thing I want to do here is I don't need to repeat the legend down here. Well, the second last thing. So I'm touching it. I'm going to press delete. That scales up the entire pie chart. And then what I want to do is I want to change the chart title. That chart title is going to be pie consumer purchases 2016. All right, so I could do this. Consumer purchases 2016. There we are. Something like that. Okay, and I also want to pull out the footwear as being the most predominant one. So how do I pull that away from the rest of the pie? Well, you click it. All right, you'll see how all the little anchors are now showing. I want to click it again, and this time it only shows the anchors for that particular slice. Then I hold my mouse button down, and I slowly pull it away from the rest of the pie, like that. All right. So what that does is it emphasizes what the reader is going to be looking at. So let's say you're talking about the predominance of footwear as being the most the most sales coming from that category in your dialogue, in your report dialogue. Then you can actually visually show that in the actual graphic, and that goes a long way to show your sophistication and your knowledge of Excel. All right. So that is level 1 of the text. Very simple stuff in terms of depicting graphics or charts, and also changing them and manipulating them to help describe the data that's being shown. All right, onward to level 2.